This is the Unregistered podcast, and I'm Thaddeus Russell. This is a show about ideas, people, and behaviors that are considered inappropriate, out of bounds, or beyond the pale. The things you're not supposed to talk about if you're a school teacher, a college professor, a businessman, a politician, a parent, a neighbor, or even a podcast host. These are the things you're not supposed to say or even think if you're a good liberal, a good conservative, or a good citizen. Each week, I'll interview a person who has something bad to say. They might be a journalist or a professor. They might be a porn star or a drug dealer. They might just be an ordinary person with an ordinary job who doesn't care about the rules of polite society. I'm not interested in breaking the rules just to be a troublemaker. I'm interested in people who break the rules of conventional thought and to expand the scope of what is possible to say in our society. I'm interested in people who make me think. If you'd like to support this show, you can join the Unregistered Underground, the supporting listeners group. Members have access to our private Facebook page, to our special Ask Me Anything episodes, and receive discounts on Renegade University courses and merchandise. To support this show and to join the unregistered community, go to unregisteredunderground.com. If you're interested in attending one of the Renegade University weekend events that are discussed in this episode, we have two coming up. The first will be in Los Angeles the weekend of February 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, and the second will be in Washington, D.C., and that's March 15th, 16th, and 17th. And over the next week, we're offering an early bird special of 20% off to either of these events. For more information and to buy tickets to the Renegade University events in Los Angeles or Washington, D.C., go to thaddeusrussell.com/courses. One of the oldest debates among historians is the question about historical change. What causes it? On one side of the debate are the so-called materialists, those who believe that material conditions, economics, institutions, the physical world make history. And on the other side of the debate are the so-called idealists, those who simply think that ideas make history. My guest this week recently changed his own history, and simply by changing his mind about ideas. But when more people who are like him hear his story, he's going to change American history. This is my interview with Joshua Childress. So I'm in LA, Los Angeles, with a very special guest, someone I've known for about 8 months, is that right?
About that.
And when we met, you were at a Renegade University weekend here in LA, and we were going around the room and introducing ourselves, and we got to you, and you said you were from Yuma, Arizona. I said, that's a strange place to be from. What do you do there? And you said you were in the Border Patrol. And I said, you're in the wrong place because I don't talk to cops. So this is Josh Childress. And at the time, you told me that you were having second thoughts, serious second thoughts, right? About being in the border or continuing to be in the patrol.
Right.
And then you called me up just about a week ago, right?
Yeah.
And you had an announcement. And what's your announcement, Josh?
I finally quit the Border Patrol.
You left.
I left, walked away.
After how long?
It would be 7 years in November. So 7 years almost.
7 years. And you were at the Yuma station the whole time?
The whole time, yeah.
Which is isn't that one of the biggest, most important crossing points?
It's got an interesting history. It's not one of the biggest stations, but right now it is one of the main points for the family groups that are coming in. The Rio Grande Valley's the top there, but we're the next in line.
For family groups?
For family groups. Women, children.
Why do they go there?
Unaccompanied. Not totally sure. There's the proximity to a city. I mean, we have San Luis, we have Yuma, that's pretty close. So I think it's just easier for them to get somewhere. But yeah, we've kind of been trying to figure that out, and nobody's really been for sure why this route is the one that they take.
But it's been in the news lately because of the new Trump policies.
Right.
Right. About families and separation of families, right?
Right.
So for 7 years you've been doing this work. Why are you quitting?
The $1 million question, huh? I just can't reconcile it anymore with my conscience. I don't think we're heading in the right direction. I think that we're moving, well, it's obvious we're moving towards greater restriction, greater control, greater enforcement. And after all that time, I can't convince myself that that's what we need. I think less of all of those things is what we need. And I think I don't want to get into right and wrong. I know where good and evil and right and wrong lead with the postmodern discussion. But
let me just say this, and I've told you this before. I know of lots of people who were basically defectors from the military who then became sort of like, whistleblowers or pundits, critics of the military. And I know there have been defectors essentially from the CIA and the intelligence agencies who've done the same thing, who've been big critics of the CIA. But you're the first person I've ever known of to leave one of the immigration agencies sort of as an act of conscience, right?
Right.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. And so this is historic, I think. This is a big deal. I've just never heard of this before. But the question is, why? Why you?
Funny that you mentioned that. When I went to talk to my supervisor to let him know that I wanted to quit, I said, well, what do I need to do? He's like, I don't know. People don't quit.
No, right. Because it's a pretty good deal, right? You get a good salary.
Yeah, it pays well. Great benefits. Very flexible. Like, if anything ever goes on with your family, personal life, whatever, you don't have to really ask any questions. You just do what you need to do.
Cops are the other people. There have been lots of cops. Serpico was a very famous one in the 1970s who basically left the force and then told all about the police force in New York City and others. But yeah, you're the first. So why? Because your background also says that you wouldn't quit also, right? Your background is as American as apple pie.
Right.
Which is what? Where are you from?
From rural Colorado, kind of middle of nowhere. And we moved around a lot, but I ended up in a really small town, no stoplights, lots of farms.
Up in the mountains, right?
Up in the mountains.
What's the name of the town?
Nucla, Colorado.
Yeah.
Nucla and Natarita, it's 2 towns 5 miles apart, share a school district.
Southwest Colorado?
Right.
Up in the Rockies.
Right.
What's the name of the range?
No, actually the San Juan
San
Mountains.
Juans.
Right.
Yeah, right, which is sort of an offshoot of the Rockies, right? Near Telluride.
Near Telluride,
yeah.
Yes. I would work in Telluride cleaning hotel rooms during winter breaks and stuff like that, yeah.
Nucla is a teeny tiny little town.
Tiny.
And it's sort of like tucked into the side of the mountain there.
Right.
Yeah, you can barely even see it when you drive by.
It's got an interesting history too.
Yeah?
Yeah. It started as a socialist commune.
Oh, really?
Yeah. In the late 1800s, early 1900s. It was, I think it was like the Colorado Water Cooperative or something like that. And so the name Nucla was supposed to be nucleus of the new America.
Oh, wow.
So, because nearby was uranium and vanadium mining.
Okay.
So that was a big industry as well. But they started off as a cooperative, not as an actual township.
Josh, you're from the nucleus of the new America.
Right.
Well, maybe you are.
Maybe I am. You should see it now.
So it's certainly not a socialist commune anymore.
No, it's a good old place.
Meaning very... Because Telluride is full of hippies and liberals.
Yes, Telluride is hippies and liberals.
Nucla is not.
Nucla is cowboys, ranchers. I hate to use the term good old boys because it has the connotation now, but I mean, salt of the earth, if you want to say that.
Us Marxists and ex-Marxists like to say working class. Is that fair?
That's fair.
Okay.
That's fair.
What
the richest person in town when I lived there owned the grocery store.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Football, right?
Football.
Pretty big?
Played football, yeah.
And you were on the team?
I was on the team.
So you played football in a little town in Colorado. And then what did you do after high school?
The right and glorious thing. No, it was pre 9/11, but I joined the Army mostly to get out of there.
Yeah.
It was a free plane ticket, food, housing, money, education. Just had to get on a plane and go.
I think I would have done the same thing. Everyone knows how I feel about the Army and the military and war and all that. But I think if I were from Nuclear, I would have done the same thing. I think it makes a lot of sense. I also think I would have benefited from the discipline that the Army gives you. I think the order, since I had no order in my life, and it just opened up the world, right, to you. And I could see that.
Right.
If you have come from a pretty small place where
Yeah.
people don't know about the outside world much.
Oh, yeah. We didn't have there was maybe one Hispanic family and a few black kids that were adopted into a white family.
Right.
And other than that, it was just white people.
So before you did this before 9/11.
Yeah, 99.
Yeah. But then 9/11 happened and you were in the service then, right?
Yeah, I served in Korea, come back, served in Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and I was in Oklahoma when it happened. I was actually supposed to get out in June of 2003.
Whoops.
And yeah, in February, I think it was, I got orders to go to Iraq in March.
Okay.
And the only reason I didn't go right to, for shock and awe and all that fun stuff was a transport ship that was moving everything over broke down. So we got pushed back in line. And so we didn't end up going until April. And by the time we got to Kuwait, everything was, the major offensive was wrapping up. Huh. And they almost sent us back. And then my colonel, apparently, that's the word on the street was the colonel begged, borrowed, and stole to find a mission for us. And so we stayed.
Thanks, Colonel.
Yeah, thanks.
So where were you in Iraq?
Balad. I think it's 8 miles north of Baghdad, something like that. It was, we basically just repurposed an abandoned Iraqi air base.
So there's a lot of construction work?
Oh, it was in shambles. It was bombed out generator shelters and hangars and just scrap metal everywhere. It was when we were one of the first groups there, so there was a lot of cleanup. It's a huge place now. There's everything: swimming pools, movie theaters, fast food. There's everything there.
So that's what you did. You made it into America.
Yeah, I started out
nucleus of a new America.
Right.
Was it a secured spot when you were there? In other words, was there?
Yeah, there was a perimeter in place, and there was Black Hawks flying all the time. So you felt relatively secure. They would lob mortars over kind of at random. So you'd just be, having lunch and something blows up, and it's not that close, but it
close enough
scares the crap out of you, and
wow,
you kind of get used to it.
Wow. And how long were you there?
Luckily I was only there for 5 months, 6 months before they lifted the whatever they enacted to keep me in past my exit date. They lifted it, and I got to go home early.
And what was your rank?
I was a specialist, E4.
And what were you doing? Were you just building this place?
So I was a welder. So my main job was our unit's job was to go out because we had a bunch of heavy equipment trucks. So we would go out, collect all the weapons caches that we knew about, and convoy them back to either, if it was good enough to be reused, to supply the new Iraqi army, or just to go be destroyed. So my main job was, first thing I did was built showers, built a barbecue grill, morale stuff, that is what they call it. But and then work on vehicles as they got damaged or whatever, needed repair.
So then you came back to the States after that?
Came back, moved to Arizona. I had some friends that I went to high school with from Colorado that lived here. I was actually on my way to Chico, California. I wanted to start a new life somewhere I'd never been, and heard good things about Chico State University.
Yes.
So I was on my way, stopped to visit some friends in Mesa, Arizona, and just never left.
Huh. But wait, didn't you go also to Afghanistan?
So, funny story behind that.
Yeah.
So I was out for about 3 years, worked in the trades, mostly construction, a little bit of metal work, different things. And I didn't know what the hell I was doing, I felt like there was something more, but swinging hammers wasn't it. And so I moved back to Colorado for a few months to clear my head, and I started thinking about going back into the military. I didn't want to do another full term, so I just joined the National Guard. And they were the Arizona National Guard was like ready to go to Afghanistan when I joined.
Oh, Jesus.
So I went to Afghanistan, spent a year there. I reclassed, so I wasn't a welder anymore. I'd reclassed to infantry. I wanted to see what the front line was like. And people thought I was stupid for doing that. They're like, welding's a great job. Why would you give that up?
Well, a lot of people go into the military to do some shooting.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? That's what you wanted.
Right, yeah.
And did you get it?
I wanted to get bad guys. I didn't get the Hollywood version that I wanted, that I thought I wanted. We got attacked a few times, nothing very up close and personal.
Where were you?
Logman Province. So we were, I think the Korengal Valley, which is the big famous Valley of Death or whatever, is 15 kilometers northeast of us. Pretty close, I think about an hour's drive to Jalalabad, which is another well-known place. So from what we understood, we were in a highway, kind of a place where so there was poppy fields everywhere. Especially the further up into the mountains you went. So we had an outpost that was like way out there, very remote. Took about 4 hours to drive 23 kilometers. It was just treacherous terrain, horrible terrain. And we'd have to go up there every 2 weeks. 2 weeks up, 2 weeks back.
And what was up there? Why was that important to the military?
There was tons of poppies up there, but we weren't even there for poppy eradication. We were working with the Afghan army, and basically what we would do daily is presence patrol. We would show force. We would go out, act aggressive, let the people know we were there, hand out beans and rice, let them know we were there to help them, and just kind of establish a presence, because what we were told, we never really saw it, but supposedly that area was a route for, moving weapons. And so we were supposed to be able to just be a presence to disrupt that. I mean, we really never got into anything when we would go out and patrol. It would be when we got back and we took our gear off and we were relaxing, then they'd just shoot rockets or shoot, lob mortars at us and it was basically harassment. But there was a couple of times we got to open fire and we didn't even really know. So the first time we ever had an attack like that, there was a local, he was kind of like a warlord. He was an arms dealer that made a deal with CIA or whoever and said he didn't deal arms anymore. So he would do construction projects on our camp. So he happened to be there during one of the attacks. And he just starts pointing up there, up there, up there. So we just start open fire up there. Now, after reading Scott Horton, I'm suspect of what he was pointing at, because towards the end of the tour, we found a map of our camp in a totally opposite direction. Somebody had drawn in the dirt a map of our camp, and we're thinking that's where they're shooting at, lobbing the mortars from. Totally different direction from where the guy said it was coming from. There was another attack where, I saw something move up on a ridge, and it was kind of like, if you're in the heat of an attack, it was like an advantageous point. So it wasn't a place where it seemed like anybody should be. So we opened fire, and we didn't end up, it might have just been an animal. Who knows? It was, it's pretty remote distances you're dealing with.
What was it like, Afghanistan?
Rough.
Yeah, in every way, right?
Yeah. Craggy rocks everywhere. Not a whole lot of vegetation where we were, but there's, where the river runs, they divert the water and have their crops. And foreign, just everything is built on stacked rocks.
How are the people?
Which people? It depends on which people. The Pashtuns were an interesting bunch. If a kid's bugging them, they'll throw rocks. They'll hit them with sticks. It's a hard Scrabble culture.
Yeah.
Then there's the Tajiks. They looked more European than the Pashtuns. The Pashtuns had I don't know what the way they look very different.
Yeah.
But so then there's the Tajiks, and they just seemed much more civilized, might be, or calm.
Or more Western, maybe.
More Western.
Yeah. It's funny, the word you used when I asked you what it was like, you said foreign.
Yeah.
Right. Except
we have an American.
Except, Josh, you were in their country.
Right.
Which might be bringing us back full circle here, right?
Right.
How did they feel about you and Americans being there?
What they said with their mouths and what they said with their eyes, two totally different things.
Yeah,
you could tell, you could see, not everybody, but mostly the older men, you could see the disdain. They did not like us. But they liked the rice, they liked the beans, they liked the backpacks and shoes that we handed out. So, and they tolerated us.
I would imagine there are some considerable number, in fact, of Afghans who liked the presence of the U.S. military and wanted to be protected from the Taliban. Did you pick that up at all?
I don't think we ever got that far.
Maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe no one wants us there.
Well, that was the impression. No, the impression I got was that we were there. This was what was going on in my mind while I'm out there going out on patrol. We're there to shield these people, to help these people. And when I took a mid-tour leave, and when I came back, I read some, I don't know, it might have been Rolling Stone or something, but I read an article about Afghanistan, and there were several people quoted in this article saying that we're no different than the Russians. And I thought, well, that's fucked up. We're not raping anybody. We're not, we're here to help. Why don't they get that? Why don't they understand? We're here to help.
Right.
So yeah, at the time I thought, well, what are these guys, looking at us like that for? We're here to help. Don't they understand?
Huh. So all the way through you had that idea?
Yeah. I thought we were doing a good thing. I didn't think we were doing it in an effective way. I thought that the way missions were developed was foolish and didn't allow us to use our capabilities. I thought we could have done more. So I get done with Afghanistan, come back, work sales for a little bit, don't like that, quit that and go to college. Start going to school full time, using the GI Bill. Studying engineering, find out within the first year that that's not for me. I just didn't do math fast enough.
Me neither.
I understood it okay, but I was just slow. I'm slow at pretty much everything. I'm meticulous and slow at pretty much everything I do.
Huh.
So I ditched engineering classes and started taking history.
Bad move. That's why.
U.S. history.
That's why you made this bad turn and you're no longer a good citizen.
History of the U.S. economy, just eating up history courses. So in U.S. history, part 2, Civil War to present.
Where are you? This is like a community college?
Mesa Community College.
Okay.
Yes. Yep. John Coughlin. So I found out later that he's a improv stand-up as well, which makes sense why his lectures were so good. He was a maniac. He'd start off slow, and he'd start introducing these concepts, and he would just get revved up and go and go and go, and by the end he's like spittles flying out and he's shouting, and it was a show, and it was stuff that I'd never heard before. I felt like betrayed by the public school system. That where was all this interesting stuff when I was forced to be here? Like, I'm choosing to be here now, but where was this, eugenics, the fact that Abraham Lincoln said, through his own words, he didn't really care whether slavery was ended or not. He wanted to keep the nation together. I thought he was he ended slavery. He was this great man. He didn't care, by his own words.
Yep.
The Emancipation Proclamation only made slavery illegal in the South, not in the North. There were still slaves in the North, not as widespread, but they still existed. Where was all this information when I was forced to go to school? So he really piqued my interest, and he handed out this pamphlet one day, or a stapled pack of papers, and he said, here's chapter 1 of a book called Renegade University of the United States.
Renegade history.
Renegade University. Renegade History of the United States.
Okay, I didn't know this. Okay. Or maybe you did tell me this at one point, yeah.
So he hands this out, and I'm reading through chapter 1. It was it was assigned reading, and then we had to write a blurb afterwards. And I'm reading through this, and I'm just blown away. Like, I've been kind of raised on the Rush Limbaugh, Glenn Beck, founding fathers were oh so great, and wait, John Adams would have been disgusted by me. Wait a minute. These guys would hate us. They would hate everything they see right now. Mm-hmm. And this idea that politics now is so vitriolic and hateful and it was the same back then. If the U.S. wants to do itself a favor, read chapter 1 of Renegade. I mean, don't even read the whole thing, but like chapter 1 will flip that paradigm enough, if you buy it anyways. I think it'll flip the paradigm enough just to make people question, like, who are these people that we're listening to? And who are these people that we look back with such reverence?
I would love to take credit for you leaving the Border Patrol, but I think I can only take a small amount of credit, right? I mean, I got to think that you had something working in your mind already at work. It seems like this teacher, John Coughlin,
yeah.
got something going in you. But even he was teaching a room full of other students as well who didn't take the same turns you did.
I was engaged.
How do we explain this guy from Nucla, Colorado, from the football team and the Army and the National Guard in Iraq and Afghanistan and Glenn Beck and Rush Limbaugh? How do we explain this guy? How old were you then?
It's like 27, 28.
How do you explain the 27 or 28-year-old Josh making this change of mind?
So, something I haven't told you, while I'm going to college, I do two things. Put in my application with the Border Patrol, because a friend of mine said that they were hiring and said that it's a fun job and you get to go chase people.
Is that what he said?
That's what he said.
It's a fun job because you get to chase people.
You get to go out, chase people, carry a gun.
Yeah.
That was all I knew.
Sure. I like chasing people.
That was all I knew. And so I put in my application with the Border Patrol, and at the same time I tried out for, so there's National Guard Special Forces units. They do all the same training as Special Forces, the Green Berets as they're called, but they don't like to be called that. They'll say, I'm not a hat. So I tried out for a unit here in LA of the Special Forces, was accepted. So I started training with them to go to the actual selection course and qualification course and earn my Green Beret. So these were I was kind of throwing out these.
This was while you're taking this crazy history class?
Right.
And reading Renegade History of the United States?
Correct.
Okay.
At this point, I'd really only read the first chapter.
Okay. So I'm sensing there's a fork in the road here in your life, right? Yeah.
So I get orders to go to the selection course, and 3 days later, I get a job offer from the Border Patrol. So I go talk to Coughlin about it because I'm flummoxed. I don't know which direction I want to go.
Yeah.
So I talked to him, and he says, well, I wouldn't do either. I'd stay in school. It's like you're engaged in class. You've got things to say. You've got views that are important. I wouldn't do either. I said, I don't know what I'm going to do with a history degree if I stay. I don't want to be a history teacher. I don't know what I'm going to do with it except for go into lots of debt. So to me, the Border Patrol seemed like the less aggressive. Like Special Forces is crazy. It's like 2 years straight of hell and training. And Border Patrol, okay, I stay here, go home every night. That was the milder option. So I took that. I went to the academy. And
what did Coughlin say when you made your decision?
He said, I think you're going to regret it.
Did he really? Was he right?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
You really regret it?
Oh no, I don't regret it, but I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I learned what I learned firsthand. Theory is fine. Theory is interesting and you can talk about it, but when you learn it on the ground firsthand, you have a hard time, arguing away from it.
I'm gonna be really self-serving, and I'm gonna say I'm thrilled that you did it. I'm really glad that you did it, because that job would have been filled by somebody, right? And if you hadn't done it, if you hadn't taken that job, it would have been filled by somebody, most likely, who wouldn't have had the change of mind that you've had, who wouldn't be ready to talk about it now, So you still haven't explained to me why you changed your mind once you were in the Border Patrol.
Okay.
I mean, we sort of, yes, you have laid sort of the seeds here, right?
Right.
You've been reading history that doesn't comport with your ideas about the history of this country as you understood it growing up in Nuclear and in the Army. But then you go in sort of deeper, in a sense. I mean, you've basically been in the military for the most part, right? Your entire adult life.
They call themselves paramilitary.
Yeah,
but
it's the military.
Yeah.
So you go even deeper, and you were even thinking about going deepest, going into special forces, right? At the same time that you're having these second thoughts. So then you're in the uniform, you're on the border. What are you actually doing, first of all? What was the job like? What did you do every day? Did you actually chase people?
Yeah. So the first year, you're training. You go to the academy, you learn a little bit of Spanish, and then you come back and you do on-the-job training, basically.
Let's talk about the training. So they teach you Spanish?
Teach you a little bit of Spanish. You don't learn Spanish, but I can...
Enough to say halt?
Yeah. I can tell somebody...
put up your hands?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, pretty much. You basically just develop a really big phrase book. And I can generally hold a conversation, maybe like on I probably sound like a 4 or 5 year old talking, weird tenses and things like that. But I can communicate enough in Spanish, which helps at my job now.
You mean your ex-job?
No, I work with a couple of Mexican dudes now.
Oh, you're in construction. You just quit 2 weeks ago, by the way, so people know. Yeah, you just quit the Border Patrol. Okay.
Right.
So they teach you a little Spanish. What else do they teach you?
Shooting. A lot of shooting.
But you were good at that already.
I was pretty good at that. I got way better at the Border Patrol Academy.
Really?
Yeah, they have a really good program. For what it's worth. And I love guns.
I mean, they don't shoot. How many people do they shoot?
Oh, it's rare.
Yeah,
it's rare. In the time I was there was one incident.
Right.
No, it's rare, but it's a good skill. I mean, if that's the work you're going to be doing, you want to be good at it. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
No, they do really good training. The bulk of it was just law. I mean, you go the first day and there's like a 2.5-3 foot stack of books on your desk, and you're going to get through all of those in 3 months. And so we have a lawyer that teaches applied authorities, which is just Constitution and how the Fourth Amendment applies to what we'll be asked to do. We have immigration law, we have naturalization law, we have to learn all the visa classifications, just lots and lots of law study.
Then I'm really glad you're here for another reason. What is the goddamn law? Because no one knows.
Yeah, I didn't know when I joined.
So on Twitter all day long, there have been fights about immigration for months and months and months, right? And never have I seen anyone reference the actual law, which the current law, right, was the one passed in 1965, the Hart-Celler Act. I mean, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's correct. And it's been revised many times since then, but that's essentially the law that's applicable, right? And so what can you please tell the world what the law is in summary?
So the law we enforce is called entry without inspection. It's actually a customs law because each person needs to be inspected of their personage and things that they're carrying with them. So what we're enforcing is basically somebody that comes in without being inspected by a customs officer.
What about the quotas, though?
Quotas?
There's numbers for each country, right?
Oh, yeah, we don't get into that really. Like Border Patrol, we just ride along the line, and if we see something come in, we go after it.
So someone comes in, they see you, you inspect them, and then you decide whether or not to admit.
Oh, no, we just arrest them. We arrest them. We arrest them, we take them back, we process them.
Oh, so, okay, so this is, the Border Patrol is only dealing with people who are entering illegally.
Right.
That's it. That's all you do. You don't do any of the processing at the checkpoints.
No, well, yeah, they do have checkpoints too. Okay. We didn't have a checkpoint at our station. Okay. Thank God.
So your job at Yuma was simply to track down and return so-called illegals.
Right.
Right? Okay. So I would imagine that tracking, like hunting, tracking, was also part of the skills?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
How to follow footprints?
Yeah. And, you learn from the guys that have been there, but when the sand is soft, it's easy. But then sometimes they wear foam over their shoes. Sometimes they wear carpet. Sometimes they walk on pavement. But there's always things that you can do to kind of keep the track fresh. There's always going to be variations, and there's always going to be patterns. So patterns shift, but you kind of get a feel for what they are. A lot of tracking, and you put yourself in their shoes, which actually was also what got me in trouble, because I started putting myself in their shoes.
A little too much.
Yeah.
Huh. So was this like a daily thing? You'd be chasing people through the desert or tracking them or following them?
Not daily. So when I came in, in 2011, finally hit the ground in 2012, and it was pretty slow. Like traffic was pretty slow when I first got there. It was, once, twice a week.
Now this was in 2012. This is I think this was at the height of the Obama deportation phase, right? I think there are more deportations in that year and maybe the following year than ever before.
I don't remember
more returns and deportations.
Right.
I believe that was the peak.
Yeah, pretty much everybody that we catch is deported.
Yeah, right. So you weren't catching that many people then, is what you're saying?
No, there wasn't. So here's where I'll get into theory. So Yuma has walls pretty much everywhere, or
on the border.
Fences, yeah.
Right.
There were fences when I came in. They turned into walls.
People act as if there hasn't been a wall this entire time.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
So in like 05, 06, Yuma was, and this is before I was there, but there was tons of guys that were there, and there's YouTube videos you can watch. But it was chaos. I mean, there was just huge groups coming over. There was tons of violence. It was just bedlam. Like there was madness.
Oh, before the wall.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know this. Okay.
So it was just, it was nuts.
Okay.
And people have all these stories about how crazy it was, and these big groups, and it was just, you never stopped. And sometimes you were working 7 days a week. I mean, it was just wild.
Arresting people.
Yeah.
Wow.
Then they put up the fences, and I think it was 07, 08, they started putting up the fences, and it died down.
So Trump's right.
Well,
we need a wall.
That's where...
Because it stops it.
Well, it stopped it in Yuma.
Yeah, well, if we completed the wall all the way across the border, it sounds like we'd go from bedlam to an orderly immigration policy.
Sounds like that.
No, seriously.
Well, what else happened?
Seriously.
What else happened in 07 and 08?
The economy tanked.
Yeah. So who's not going to come anymore? I didn't put these dots. I didn't connect these dots right away.
So you think it was not busy because the economy was so bad, and there weren't as many jobs for the Mexicans?
Well, I think a combination of, you put up a wall, they're going to go somewhere else to cross.
Mm-hmm.
But also, if there's not jobs, what are they coming here for?
Right. Yeah. So most of the people you've been catching ever since the wall are the people who go around it. How do they get over?
No, they can just climb over.
Oh, they climb over it.
Climb over. I mean, I think they found one tunnel since I've been there, but there's got to be more. But yeah, they climb over. There's no wall along the river, so they'll cross the river. Parts of the river are dry, so that's not too hard either.
Right. It's not hard, in other words.
We try to make it hard.
What's the section of the desert where it's been said that the wall made it more dangerous because it forced people to cross over in some very dangerous part of the desert?
Well, so there was a book written called The Devil's Highway.
Yeah.
And I forget the author of that, but that was Yuma. That was Yuma's East Desert. So the walls went up. I'm thinking this is about that time. The walls went up, so people started crossing further east, which it's a lot bigger trek from the border to the highway, which is where they want to go get picked up. So it was just an unusually hot span of time, and the smuggler didn't know his routes. He was new to the area anyways, and got these people lost. And I think all but 3 died. A bunch of people, a dozen so people died.
In a truck?
No, that was just died of
just walking
from dehydration and heat.
Jesus Christ.
Just slow. And there's accounts where people were swimming in the sand because they were hallucinating. They thought they were in water and they were trying to swim, but there's dig marks where they were swimming in the dirt. Our solution to that was they put up a camp out there in the middle of nowhere. So if you get assigned to go to the camp, you stay there for a week and you just go patrol out there.
A camp for?
So there's just a camp that the agents stay at, and so then instead of having to go from your station, which is a lot farther away, there's this outpost there. And so the thinking is that we're going to find people, or they're going to find people before they get to that state. So they're going to catch people before they die, right. Essentially is the aim.
Okay. And has that been effective?
Yeah, I don't think we've had...
You haven't found bodies lately?
So that's a different station where that is. It's part of the Yuma sector, but it's a different station. Yeah, I think it's not uncommon, but nothing on that scale, not where it's just like a whole group.
So how many people do you think you've caught was it 6 years?
Almost 7,
Almost. Yeah. How many people do you think you personally have apprehended or had a part in apprehending?
A couple dozen.
Yeah. And who were they? What did you find instead of bodies?
Well, funny that you mentioned that. That's how we refer to them, as bodies.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I don't think it's sinister or anything, but yeah, it does kind of have the effect of detaching yourself from, it's not a person, it's a body.
Really? You don't call them illegals or migrants, or it's bodies?
Mm-hmm. And I think I think it's just that's an easy term to use so that slang doesn't get mixed up on the radio.
Mm-hmm. So what did you find when you were looking for people? Who did you find?
Oh,
who were they?
Oh, all kinds. So the chase, I'll admit, the chase was kind of fun.
Sure.
It's exciting, and you're using your logic, and you're using your faculties, and you're figuring out what they're going to do and trying to stay a step ahead of them, and that part's fun. It really wasn't ever that gratifying to catch them, I didn't think, because then you're face to face with them, and you're like, this guy, he's scared, he's running, he's trying to get away, but you're like, well, he broke the law, so I'm doing a good thing, right? I'm arresting him, enforcing the law. Now, what did make you feel better is you have to go in and write your report at the end of the night. When you go in and write your report, well, they've already input them into the system, so you find out if they've got a criminal history. So if they got a criminal history, then you're like, oh, good, got a bad one off the streets.
Yeah.
But then when they don't, what did I just do? Took somebody that's going to change tires, pick lettuce. I mean, what harm? What harm?
Is that what did it for you?
Pretty much. I mean, so there was one, I think I told you this story, but I was processing a case once, and one of the routine questions is, do you have any scars or tattoos? And this guy says, yeah, I've got scars. I said, show me. It's just for identification marks kind of thing. So he lifts up his shirt, and there's like Jesus-style lashes across his back, like big mounded scars it was unmistakable that they were lash marks. And in my wonderful Spanish, I was like, what the hell happened? And he explained, and I understood well enough, but I asked somebody to come translate to make sure I was getting the story right. So what he said was, the smugglers told him that if he wanted to cross, he had to, carry a load of drugs for them. And he didn't want to do it. So they tied him up and whipped him till it split open his back. And I was like, fuck. I don't want to send this guy back. That wasn't every person, but that was a real in your face, like, I don't have a choice. I have to send this guy back. And to get into policy a little bit, everybody that we prosecute, everybody that we send back cannot even apply to enter legally for 5 years. So if we're really interested in getting people to do it the right way, why are we doing that? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's not a deterrence. That's just guaranteeing that they're never going to do it the right way.
So you did send him back?
We did, yeah. We had to.
Do you remember his name?
No, unfortunately.
Do you remember anything else about him? What he would have done for a living if he had been allowed in?
Probably carpentry. It's mostly carpentry, masonry, tire shops. Mm-hmm. Those are the standards.
Mm-hmm. So who else did you catch? Any bad guys? You must have caught some bad guys.
Yeah, there's child molesters, rapists, murderers, manslaughters. I think one that I remember in particular was I think he pled down to manslaughter. But I mean, there's scary dudes.
Yeah.
Like,
were they armed ever?
No, they don't. We don't really come across that. Once in a while, it's like they'll have a knife, like a pocket knife, but it doesn't really seem like, it just seems like a tool that people, there's not really, I think it's kind of, not to say that it's not dangerous, but a lot of times it kind of seems like a gentleman's agreement. Like, all right, I'm going to try to come in. You're going to try to get me. We'll see where the chips fall.
Oh, really?
They kind of have a good attitude about it, or they seem to.
So the penalty is they will not be able to enter legally for at least 5 years. Right. That's what they're risking here.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and depending on if they have a criminal history or how many times they've crossed before, they'll spend a little bit of time in jail, in our jails, before we send them back.
How good were you guys at this? Like, how many people do you think you let through? How right is Trump about that?
I think we're pretty good.
Like, what do you think? What's the ballpark percentage?
90%.
Really?
Probably.
Huh. Who crossed?
But it was pretty slow. So it's like, I remember I've heard stories of a group of 20 coming across back in the day, and they just grab as many as they can, and then the rest they have to watch them go because they can't handle anymore. Mm-hmm. So when it's, slower, it's not easier because you have to stay on your toes. But
okay, so what about children? Did you ever find children?
Yeah.
Catch children?
Yeah. So there's always been unaccompanied youth coming through, not very often, but there would be, mothers and their kids here and there, but it was 2014.
Yeah.
Was when it just went nuts.
Right. And that was the Central American exodus, right?
Right.
And you had all these women and children coming, and then Obama opened the detention camps, is that right? For them?
The opening the detention camps was just, we were not set to deal with that many people,
Sure.
so they had to scramble to do something.
Right.
I know it sounds, but we weren't ready to deal with the amount of people that were coming, and so we had to, we didn't have to, we never did that, but
they broke the law. It was the law.
Right.
No, seriously, right? And you were simply enforcing the law, as was Obama, correct? There's quotas on all these countries, and they had reached their max for Honduras and Guatemala and all the rest, and Mexico. And so those women and children who came across were not allowed in, according to national law.
So the women and children is a different thing.
Okay.
They don't try to get in. They don't try to get away. They just show up and wait for us to pick them up because they know they will at least get a day in court. So that's the difference between people that we used to chase and try to catch, and now it's just they just show up and wait for you to pick them up. And huge numbers. Tons of them. And
so you take them to a detention center.
We take them back to our station, process them, and then we pass them to ICE, and ICE helps them navigate the rest of it, and we just never see that.
So you're
other part of it.
Just catching people.
Right.
That's really what the patrol does.
Catching, picking them up when they flag us down.
You're patrolling and catching. Yeah. Okay. That's really what you do. Okay. But wait, you said you only caught about 24 people in 6 years or 7 years?
Probably.
So you're spending most of your time just wandering around the desert.
Oh, yeah.
Is that right?
Oh, there's a lot. So it's a weird deal. It's a weird job where you can go a couple of days with nothing. And I'm saying a couple dozen maybe that I personally, but if something's happening nearby, I'll go help with the chase.
Yeah.
So the more people you have working on it, the easier it is.
So what's the day look like? You show up at the station and then what?
Show up at the station, go to muster, get your truck, go out.
You just start driving.
You drive. You're assigned to an area. Yeah. You get out there, get kind of a pass down from the guy that was there before you, and get to work. Just start.
You just drive up and down the roads.
Drive up and down.
In that region that you've been assigned. Mm-hmm. Are you with a partner? Mm-hmm. By yourself?
Most of the time. If you have a partner, they're in another truck some distance away.
Did you listen to podcasts while you were doing that?
That's all I did.
We've finally discovered.
Finally got back around
Okay,
to it.
now we've discovered the key, right? You told me that. That was sort of really what turned you.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
So
I love this. So Border Patrol agent is listening to podcasts on the job.
So I started out with, I love This American Life.
Okay.
I know.
I won't hold that against you.
Okay. I know how you feel about NPR. The Adam Carolla Show, Joe Rogan. So I'm getting into podcasts, and I keep thinking about this renegade history book that I still haven't read.
You're not obligated to flatter
I'm not,
me.
and I know the way I'm telling it sounds like I'm just kissing ass, but for whatever reason, your ideas stuck in my head.
Okay.
So I did a Google search, and I found this podcast called School Sucks.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, I think school sucks too. Mm-hmm. And let's learn more about this guy. So I download it, I listen, and I'm like, I like this. You got that was the first I'd ever heard of Brett. Mm-hmm. But just the ideas were so wild. And I don't even remember what that podcast was about. I think you guys talked about Frankfurt School and
right.
some stuff that I didn't really know
things directly
about.
relevant to your job.
Right. But I was just like, man, this is a refreshing take on things. So, every once in a while I'd like do a search and, he's on Rogan. Cool. So I listened to that and then found out you were doing your own podcast. So I thought, oh, cool. So when that came out, I started listening, and I think I talked to you about this. I'm not terribly proud of this, but a couple of your earlier guests, Maggie McNeil and Connor Habib. Maggie McNeil is a famous prostitute. She likes to call herself a whore.
Yep.
Connor Habib, a gay porn star with a master's degree.
Yeah.
I saw those episodes popped up. I started listening to Maggie, and I was just like, I don't want to hear about prostitution. Like, I don't have anything against it morally.
Right.
Like I've always pretty much leaned libertarian in most areas, but I didn't want to hear about it. Mm-hmm. And the same thing with Connor Habib. Like, what am I going to gain out of hearing about gay porn? I mean, it just wasn't appealing. But then it also bothered me that I was put off. I'm like, well, what's the big deal? Check it out. So I listened to him. And so Maggie McNeil was fierce, fascinating, and bravery. Like, I don't think any of the things that I've done through the military or anything else have been brave, and not in the same way that woman is brave.
Yeah.
Connor Habib, brilliant mind. I don't agree. I mean, I've listened to his podcast a few times. I don't agree with all of the left stuff that he's into, but I mean, just a fascinating guy, and bubbly, great outlook on life. And the one thing that I remember stuck out about his podcast was towards the end, he started talking about how this is a wonderful place we live in. There's infinite possibilities, and why don't we just start thinking bigger? Why don't we start, let's throw out the old, like, just because it's the way things have always been, let's see where we can go. Let's see what we can come up with. And I love that. And it's something I've thought about much myself. So I'm blown away by these two podcasts that I initially was turned off by. And I'm like, what the hell else am I just walking around with that isn't really what I think it is? So I start examining. I just start thinking about, well, what do I really think about prisons? What do I really think about the drug war? What do I think about, the drug war? I've long thought that was a foolish move, but I justified enforcing it on the border because I thought, well, cartels are bad. Mm-hmm. I want to stop the cartels. Not making the connection that prohibition just gives the cartels power. Mm-hmm. Doesn't hurt them at all. It gives them the power they need to use force. So I started examining, and immigration's the one where it's like, okay, I'm libertarian in all these other areas except for this one. And all the libertarians have this kind of view of immigration. So I thought, okay, I'm going to sit down and write an argument for why I think immigration policy, what we're doing, is a good idea. And I started writing, and I got maybe 2 paragraphs before I realized this is full of holes. That was jarring. That was like...
Because you just demolished your whole life.
Yeah. So that was... I don't know if I'd already bought the tickets to the Renegade weekend at this point, but it was right around that time. And I thought, I can't justify this anymore. Like, I can't justify that controlling people, controlling the movement of people who want to just work and want to just improve themselves in the way that I want to improve myself. Like, that's pretty much all I work towards, is being a better me. I told a friend the other day, I'm like, the one thing in life that makes me happy, or one of the things in life that makes me happy, is looking back and being like, what the fuck were you doing back then? I can continually look back and think, well, I've progressed. I've moved forward from what I'm not thinking exactly the same as I used to think. But then what do I do with that? My family is in Yuma for me, because of me, for my job.
Yeah, you're married.
I'm married. I have twin boys.
Oh my God.
5 years old.
Oh my God.
Just started kindergarten.
Okay, I did not know this. Okay, and what did your wife think about all this?
About my...
Honey, I listened to this podcast today. It was this gay porn star, and now I no longer want to be in the Border Patrol.
She actually already knew who Maggie McNeil was.
Really?
Well, so she worked for Backpage.com.
Oh my God.
And
that's amazing.
So she knew who Maggie McNeil was, and she's like...
Just so people know, Backpage was recently shut down because it has served as sort of an advertising forum, basically, for sex workers.
Right.
Yeah.
And beyond that, I mean, something that I didn't know even while she worked there or anything else, that was their safety net.
Yeah.
That was how they screened clients.
Right.
And I don't know, but like something like 7 or 8 prostitutes who formerly used Backpage have been killed because they can't screen their clients anymore.
That is correct. Yes.
So I'm a huge Maggie McNeil fan now. Like I went from being kind of put off to like, this woman is a hero. Like,
oh wow.
And I went from being kind of silently approving of prostitution as something that people can choose to do to like, man, these women are badasses. Like, if that's what they want to do, awesome. But they're the people that you talk about in the Renegade history. Like, they're just living their lives. I mean, in a way that's, I don't just do what I want to do the way that they do, and that's brave.
Yeah. You've been following the rules your whole life until now, right? Following rules and orders and the law,
right?
Enforcing the law. You've been completely on that side,
right,
of that civil war that I describe in my book, right? You've been on the other side, the side opposite of Maggie and Connor, and right. Holy crap, man! I didn't know that part. That's pretty amazing, and I didn't know you had kids.
Yeah.
So your wife. I'm worried about her. I'm worried. I feel some responsibility here, although of course it's your responsibility. But I do feel like
she's supportive.
Good.
She's supportive.
Good.
She was a little taken aback, but I also think she was never. She never said anything bad about, my job or how I talked about my job. But once I decided I didn't want to do it anymore, and once she found why I didn't want to, she's like, yeah, I never really liked hearing you talk about the bad guys, and which, I mean, yeah, that was what I thought I was doing, like getting the bad guys.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's also the income that you lost, right?
Oh yeah, and the benefits.
Which I'm sure are pretty good.
Oh, great.
They treat you well, don't they? Yeah. What about your kids? How do they feel about this? Do they like Yuma?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yuma's hard to like, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. We've moved, and they like the new house. They like school, which I'm surprised because I hated school. I'm happy that it's not like a miserable experience for them. Yeah. But yeah, they enjoy going and doing it.
Well, I guess they'll just never be a guest on this podcast, but that's okay.
I'll
Because we only have people who hate school.
Yeah.
You know that, right?
Right.
So what are you doing for a living now?
I am a maintenance technician for an apartment complex.
Mm-hmm.
I'm back in the trades.
Mm-hmm. And what are you thinking long term? What do you want to do?
I want to write. I've been writing fiction for. So one thing that my kids did for me, or the experience of seeing them born and being saddled with the responsibility of being a father, was I looked at them and I saw just kind of the same potential Connor Habib was talking about, like endless potential. And I thought about the role model I wanted to be. And I thought, I've always wanted to write. So back to Afghanistan. There was an attack. I was attached to a different unit than my normal unit on a stupid reason. I won't go into all of it, but I was with a different group of guys than I was normally with at the patrol base. And this attack happens in the middle of the night. And the platoon sergeant was just like, hey, you're not in our battle plan. Everybody knows where they need to be. Just get to the bunker, sit tight till it cools off. So I'm in there having mortal thoughts. Like, what if something directly hits the bunker? Like, is it going to hold? Am I going to be buried? Like, what's going on here? And it's kind of like that scene in Fight Club where he's driving down the highway with the pedal down and it's raining, and he's like, what would you want to do before you died? And I thought, I want to write a book. I didn't know about what, but I hated reading growing up. And then I found books that I liked to read late in life, like towards the end of high school. I actually found, in school, they wanted me to read Anne of Green Gables and Black Beauty and shit like that. Like, what the fuck do I care about any of that? But then I took a college literature course in my junior year, and I found The Heart is a Lonely Hunter by Carson McCullers. Are you familiar?
Not really.
You'd love her. Yeah. So she's an odd character, but she writes about the South. I think it's pre-World War I. But there's this black family, and the father is kind of your Martin Luther King. Like, why don't you kids just straighten up and stop talking that way? And he's the doctor of the town, or the black doctor of the town. And he goes around and he has to keep all these black families that he detests, and he has to heal them and make them better. And his own kids are going out drinking and having fun and playing music and getting into trouble.
Oh my God, I do need to read this.
And he's disgusted by them, and they're sad for him. They're like, we wish you would, basically like, we wish you would learn to enjoy life. But then there's also, so it's like a multifaceted book. There's these deaf mutes who live together, and then one of them gets sent to an insane asylum because he steals candy every day. And there's this girl who's coming of age, and has a crush on this Jewish boy down the street, and is that okay? And it's a fascinating book. It's a fascinating book about people. And I was assigned that book, and I think that might have been the first book I ever read completely. And so then it was that, Catcher in the Rye. I mean, I realized, wow, there's books, and they're not all stupid.
Yeah, you were attracted to books, sounds like, that had some rebels in them.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I've always kind of liked that, and I didn't sit still well in school, especially in high school. Got kicked out of 2 classes my senior year.
You're not the kind of guy, though, to be ranting and raving and yelling and marching down the street.
No.
And, you're not like me at all.
No.
Right?
I see, like, pep rallies in high school drove me insane because I'm like, I don't want to be part of the crowd. Like, I don't want to be one of the people cheering and rah-rahing. I'm fine having an opinion about it, and I'm fine talking about it, but that being part of a group has just always been weird for me.
So hold on. You're in the bunker. The Taliban are firing stuff at you. You don't know if you're going to die, and you're thinking, I want to write a book?
Right.
Why'd you want to write a book so bad?
I wanted to write a book that people that didn't like to read wanted to read.
Which would be what kind of book?
a book about crazy shit.
Yeah.
So, well, when everything cooled off, I went back to my cot and I pulled out my computer and I started writing. And I started writing about kind of some shenanigans that I'd gotten into earlier in life while I was in the Army in Fort Sill, Oklahoma.
Like what?
Oh, God. That's a can of worms.
What'd you do? I like cans of worms.
Slept with a friend's wife after they had separated.
Ooh.
And I don't know, it was just a weird time in my life because I'd been raised Christian. And
Oh, right. We haven't talked about that. You were a Christian, too.
I was raised that way. I didn't really, towards high school, I started fighting with my parents about, like, I don't want to go. I don't want to do this. And it's just not for me. And I've gone back and forth throughout life. Like, I've started going to church and stopped and gone back and forth. Right now, I would say I'm a agnostic. I like Jesus's message. I think he's got some valuable things to say.
You know he was a socialist, right? Are you aware of this?
And he was a postmodernist.
Oh, no. Definitely not, but definitely a socialist.
For modernity then, he was a postmodernist.
Let me ask you this. I have always suspected I would enjoy being in the military. What do you think? What are my chances? Because let me tell you why. Mm-hmm. Because, I come from chaotic background, broken family, divorced parents when I was 5. Parents were sort of non-existent, negligence, blah, blah, blah. Kind of made my own way my whole life, been a loner, never really got help from anybody, and at least not until I was well into my adulthood. And I'm always really attracted to settings in which there is order and you know exactly what to do next all the time. And there will always be a roof over your head and there will be someone who will feed you and a bed to sleep in. To know that, to have that always, that actually ironically feels like freedom. This is sort of socialist freedom, as a matter of fact, right?
Oh, yeah.
The military is a socialist institution.
Absolutely.
Right. So, and this is in fact the argument.
And the healthcare sucks.
This is the argument that, oh, really?
Oh, God, yeah.
This is the argument, in fact, that was just made in the New York Times op-ed section just the other day by a guy I sort of know, a professor of political science at Brooklyn College named Corey Robin, who makes this very argument about socialism. Socialism, he says, and many socialists say, is actually a politics about freedom because you no longer, under socialism, have to worry about making a living. You no longer have to worry, they say, about a boss being an oppressive figure in your life. You no longer have to worry about pleasing a boss. You no longer have to worry about making it in the hustle and bustle of the market where it's do or die, win or lose all the time.
Right.
You're always essentially taken care of in exchange for loyalty, duty, and work for the collective institution, in this case, the military. So right. That makes sense to me. It appeals to me. I kind of get it.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah.
And the reason when it came time to get out of the Army, that scared the shit out of me.
Yeah.
Because I thought, I'm going to be thrown out there. I have to fend for myself.
Yeah, it sucks out here.
It was scary. And that's why I did it, because I thought I can sit here and I can float and coast. I mean, it sucked. There's a lot of things that were not enjoyable about the military, but you do your work. Well, when you're not at war, like when you're back.
Well, there is that problem.
Yeah, there's that.
But generally, we have the special ops guys do all the nasty stuff now. So most people in the military are just sitting in a chair all day long.
Yeah. Most, when we weren't patrolling was like a few hours a day most of the time. So it was
you did tours in Iraq and Afghanistan and never killed anybody, probably, right? And barely shot your gun, right? And that's, I think, true for most
I probably spent more time in the gym than I did patrolling.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah. So, and then the Border Patrol, right? 24 people in 7 years. Not bad. Most of the time you're driving around listening to me and Joe Rogan and whoever. Nice middle-class salary, house, great benefits, you say, except for the healthcare, right?
Oh, Army healthcare sucked.
Oh, okay.
Oh no, I had good benefits with the Border Patrol.
So hell yeah. I mean, I'm tempted. I might even sign up after this. Maybe I'll replace you. Mm-hmm. I mean,
who's gonna make the money to make all that?
I'm only 90% joking.
I know. Yeah. No, there's truth to it.
Yeah.
There's truth. Some of the freest I've ever felt has been all I do. I show up, I get paid to work out in the morning, I go to work, and when I'm done with work...
Wait, they pay you to work out? You mean at the gym?
PT.
They pay you for that?
You do PT every morning.
Get out of here. I'm totally taking your job now.
And you go to work. I was a welder, so I go work in a shop, get done around 5 or 6, go to the coffee shop, bullshit with some punk rockers and ravers and weird people, and I'd carry around my notebook and I would write.
Right.
I'd write and I'd draw, and that was my life.
Well, that's the Army or the Border
That
Patrol?
was the Army.
Yeah.
It was.
Border Patrol is also a pretty cushy job.
It's cushy, yeah. Yeah, it doesn't have the...
And you have no worries except for possibly getting shot by a smuggler.
Possibly getting...
Which is unlikely
attacked.
because it happens every, like, once a decade, right?
Yeah, so the I'm not really superstitious, but there are things that stick in my mind. The first immigration officer, or I guess he was an inspector, to die in the line of duty was named Clarence M. Childress.
Oh, no.
Yeah, first one.
Oh, boy.
And so, they would keep like, pictures of all the fallen agents, they call them. And there was that first one, and God damn if he didn't just look down on me, and I would think...
No relation, though?
Oh, I don't know that much about the Childress side of the family, so it's very possible.
And maybe it's best to keep it that way.
It's very possible, and I mean, he looks like he could be akin to my grandfather.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So maybe that's why
He got
quit.
shot chasing tequila smugglers in 1919, I think.
Oh, wow. Way back. Before there was really a border.
So there was like...
there was a border, but there was no real patrol.
So the history of the patrol is, I think in the late 1800s or early 1900s, they set up what were they called? Mounted inspectors. So they would kind of ride horse along the border and just kind of look for people.
Right.
And it was 1924, that the Border Patrol was formally...
That's the National
created.
National Origins Act of 1924, right, which created the Border Patrol. But even then, it wasn't really funded.
Yeah, it was still a few years before they were actually uniformed. One of my firearms instructors told me about... I was never able to find it, but there was a recruitment poster, and the criteria for becoming a Border Patrol agent in the early days was must have your own horse, your own gun, be able to handle yourself, and have at least, I think it was 6 teeth.
Why? Why teeth?
I think it had something to do with like being able to eat food while you're eat food that's transportable.
Tough job.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, the quota was not applied to Mexico, and there was basically almost open immigration, but it was the Bracero program, right? It was, so they were allowing lots and lots of Mexicans across the border until 65.
Originally, it was Chinese we were worried about.
Yeah, but until 65, that border was porous deliberately because they wanted all the cheap labor, right? Mm-hmm. They weren't allowed to be permanent residents or citizens, but they were allowed in on a regular basis to work in the fields, right? Mm-hmm. Until 65, the Immigration Act, which basically created your job and the wall and all the rest of it, right?
I get the way that they talk about police are professionalized. I think that's kind of what it kind of turned from a few hundred, or I don't know what the numbers were like back then, but it kind of professionalized the force.
Oh yeah.
And then even for a long time, like nobody knew about them. Like nobody knew what they did. There was 5,000 guys stretched out along a big border.
How many are there now?
20?
Oh, really? 20,000. That's not a lot.
It's not a lot.
Very big border.
Yeah.
Do you know who supplemented the Border Patrol? Which private institution supplemented the Border Patrol right after 1965?
No.
In the first years of the Act, when there was a real border and real policing of the border?
No.
The United Farm Workers, led by Cesar Chavez.
Oh yeah.
It was called Operation Wetback. This was the United Farm Workers' own project run by Cesar Chavez. It was called Operation Wetback. The union set up their own patrols all across the border in Arizona and California, I think in Texas and New Mexico too, to stop the non-union cheap labor from coming in to competing with them in the fields.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it was Cesar Chavez who also, by the way, coined the term illegal.
Yeah.
Yeah, illegal alien, illegal immigrant. He went on a campaign to stop illegal immigration, and he used those terms in the media, as did all of organized labor at the time, as did Teddy Kennedy, who wrote the law in the first place.
Good old Teddy.
It was a liberal democratic initiative, that law. It placed quotas on all the countries. It's not racist, right? Because the old National Origins Act was racist.
Right. Now it's just by country.
Now it's just, It's just everybody has the same number. Mm-hmm. So, of course, Mexico has the same number as Norway.
Yeah.
Which isn't...
right.
Yeah,
because
hardly anybody wants to come here from Mexico. Yeah, so I mean, I'm telling you stuff you know, but in case people aren't aware, this is what people don't know in all these this screaming and yelling about immigration that drives me crazy.
Cesar
It's like
Chavez is a socialist hero, right?
But forget about Cesar Chavez being a complete hypocrite and whatever. It's that people don't know that there's a law that's being enforced by Trump. Trump is doing nothing but enforcing the law. So if you want to change this, if you want to stop turning people around at the border, stop putting people in detention centers, you've got to change the law, change the quota, the number that's attached to each country.
Or so after the Renegade weekend, when I showed up, and I didn't talk much. I'm sure I was still in a whirlwind.
I was wondering what the hell you were doing here.
I was still in a whirlwind. I kind of just wanted to like see it. I was like, okay, here's these concepts and these ideas that I'm hearing over the radio or over the podcast. Right. But I wanted to like make it real. I was like, I got to go sit there in person, like prove to myself, like viewing a body at a funeral. It's like I gotta see it to make sure it's real. And I came and I was blown away. Like, the group of guys that gathered here,
and women too,
and women, and high school. Yep,
we had a high school girl. Yep.
That was, I mean, I didn't have anything in common with any of them, and I felt so at home. Like these guys love ideas, they love just putting it out, like throwing it out there. They're just like, nobody has anything to prove. They're just interested and they want to know more and they want to learn. It was a slice of heaven.
Really,
even though I'm not crazy about the Venice Walk was fun. I'm not crazy about LA, but I had such a good it's not fun like skiing or swimming or something, but it was just like fulfilling. There were lectures, there were discussions, there was interacting with all the other people. It's just what I look for.
Yeah, well, I mean, it sounds like you're intellectually curious generally, right? It's beginning with Carson McCullers, maybe.
Yeah.
Back in high school.
Yeah.
And those novels. You're interested in ideas that you were previously unaware of. You just want to know what's out there. Is that right?
Right.
Even if you don't agree with them, you just.
Oh yeah.
You're just interested in new ideas.
Heidi Matthews, who was at New Orleans.
Right.
She's a fascinating character. Like, I didn't agree with a good chunk of what she was saying, but it was things that I'd never heard of, and it made my gears turn, and I was like, I have to think about this now.
So like a very significant portion, I don't know exactly what it is, but there's a lot of people who listen to this podcast and have been Renegade University students who come from the military.
Yeah.
And I call it the 9/11 generation. Like, in fact, you're a little bit unusual in that you entered before 9/11, but like the typical RU student, I hate that term, but whatever, people who have come and done RU or listen to the podcast are usually men, not always, but who became politicized because of 9/11 and then entered the military because of that and went off to Afghanistan or Iraq and then changed their mind, sort of like you, once they were in the military. But I don't know of anybody who went into the Border Patrol as well. But there is this whole generation, I've come to learn, people basically your age, mostly men, but not entirely, who weren't political until 9/11, who didn't really think about these. But that really changed their lives. And a lot of them found Ron Paul, and a lot of them found other maybe left-wing people who were critics of the war or whatever. But
yeah, I wish I would have found Scott Horton or anti-war or something.
But I've noticed
a little sooner.
Your generation, it's almost like there was a Vietnam generation whose like worldview was so much shaped by what was going on in the world. And that's true for there's this sort of untold story, I think, about your generation. And you're you're in your 30s, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's classic. I'm always running into people just like you, in this way anyway, who are your age, usually men who were in the service in some way or another, who are now radicals and had this change of mind when they were in the service.
Well, if you think about it for very long, you start to feel really slighted. You think, well, you're putting it all on the line. Like you're signing a contract agreeing that you might go lose your life for this thing. Yeah. And then if somebody pulls the cover off and says, you know what, we didn't really need to be there. The Taliban was trying to hand bin Laden over. The Taliban was trying to work with us. And you think, well, fuck, then what did my buddy die for? Like, you start to get a little pissed. And then you start to look. I mean, some people don't want to look. Some people, but I like it. I like to.
So, are you an open borders guy?
So,
what's your position? We don't even know yet. I don't even know what it is yet. I'm an open borders guy, but I need a good argument for that.
So I asked you after we talked after the Renegade weekend. I said, I don't even know what the hell open borders is. Like, can you break that down for me? Because I voted Gary Johnson. I knew he was open borders, but I didn't really know what he meant by that.
He's not open borders.
But claimed. But yeah. So I said, well, what the hell is this?
I'm pretty sure Gary doesn't know what open borders means
Probably,
either.
Probably. It was a vote for the party.
Yeah, gotcha. Gary's a nice guy.
So you said, well, Brian Kaplan's kind of the subject matter expert for that.
Oh yeah.
So
the guy at George Mason, professor.
I went to work after we talked, and I found, I think it was a Reason podcast with Brian Kaplan. I found a couple of YouTube videos. I just listened to him, and his basic thing was, well, he prefaces, he says, I think the borders should be completely open, just no control. Right. People come and go as they please. Let the market decide. But that's not realistic. That's not ever going to be passed in legislation. So the next best thing is, if you don't have a communicable disease and you don't have a violent criminal past, you can come in and stay as long as you please and do whatever do what you want to. And I had kind of come to a similar conclusion as that, but to hear George Mason professor Brian Kaplan say what I'd kind of intuited through my experience was comforting. And that's pretty much where I land now is, if you don't have a communicable disease, and even the criminal past, like, people change. You know, I've done things, I wouldn't sleep with anybody's wife anymore. You know, I learned that lesson the hard way.
Imagine if that were a criterion for entry into the United States. Never committed adultery.
But yeah, like, people change. We're a Christian nation, right? Forgiveness is one of the main parts of that.
That's what they say.
So, okay, maybe even the you have a past, but okay, did you learn from that? Have you? And I know we're getting into, we can get into well, let's not get into, because I'm not well read enough to really argue it. But I've been listening to Discipline and Punish.
Oh, Foucault.
Yeah. And so that's fascinating as far as the prison system and everything. But yeah, violence is really the only thing that I think should be against the law. Like, violence and theft and predatory violence at that. Like, if people want to scuffle and fight, whatever, that's...
So you think only people with communicable diseases should be turned around at the border, and maybe the occasional super violent criminal.
Yeah, like somebody that's demonstrated that they don't have any interest in being reformed, and
otherwise no enforcement or no law stopping anyone.
I do like the idea of having a port of entry. I think...
Okay. So you're not for abolishing the Border Patrol?
No.
What about abolishing ICE, which is the current hot thing? Everybody wants to abolish ICE, even though they don't even know that's only part of the structure.
I've kind of always thought that ICE was a unnecessary part of it.
It was tacked on. We already had Border Patrol. We already had this.
Well, yeah, like kind of, and this
immigration enforcement.
My coworkers and I have discussed this, and we've kind of come to the conclusion, or not, well, a couple of us have come to the conclusion, like, why do we have a separate organization that does...
Good question.
Like, shouldn't it just be like a lateral promotion to you've worked on the border long enough, you know how that dynamic works. Okay, now you're an investigator and you can go do what ICE is supposed to be doing or whatever. So yeah, I'm fine with ICE going away. Well, and I'd love for the Border Patrol's only job to be to scoop up those guys.
There we go. Yeah.
That can't get in the other way. And I'm with Brian that, like, yeah, in a perfect world, I don't claim to be an anarchist, because it just seems to kind of people generally tend to organize into neighborhoods or groups or cliques or whatever. So anarchy just seems kind of self-defeating implemented. But yeah, I like the idea of a world where, like, merit wins and all chips are on the table. Like,
yeah, you know what? You should definitely not do?
What's that?
Work for the Border Patrol.
Right.
Yeah. Your ideas don't mesh well at all with that agency.
No.
Yeah. So what are you going to do? You're going to write?
So yeah, another thing I was waiting to get out to do was start posting my stuff online. So I've started posting some of my writing online. That's gonna go wherever that goes.
Well, I mean, are you going to write about immigration? Are you going to write about your job, your former job, or the military? Not that that's the only thing that would be interesting,
Right.
but that seems to me
Right.
to be something that a lot of people would be interested in reading.
So I have a couple friends that I turned on to your podcast. And one of them, he's a Jordan Peterson guy too. So
That's okay.
me and him go back and forth because
I love Jordan Peterson.
I do. Even though I'm not like, I don't have the fullest grasp on postmodernism, it's starting to settle in with me. Like,
Yeah, if you're a postmodernist, you should definitely not work for the Border Patrol because they're not into that at all.
no,
They like rules and truth and reality and objective truth.
right,
Yeah.
right. I told him that I went to the LA weekend, and I told him that I was able to talk to you, that I didn't get to talk to you very much at the weekend, but that you were, kind enough to let me call after the fact so we could talk. And he said, well, what did you guys talk about? I was like, just kind of why I don't really like what I do anymore, and how my mind has changed and things like that. And he thinks I should write about it. And I was like, he said, well, yeah. I was like, well, why do you agree? He said, because I want to know too. Like, I still don't get it. I still don't understand why you're walking away. But
Oh, really?
yeah, I don't think that he has a position strongly in one way or the other. He'd have been just as good a friend to me had I stayed or had I gone. He's happy to have me closer by now, but I don't think he has an opinion on the matter one way or the other. But he's curious. Like, how does this guy that I've known for so long, who's not like, I'm pretty stubborn when it comes to most things. How do I change my mind like that so drastically? So him telling me that he was interested in knowing why made me think, okay, I probably should write. I've started a little bit. Writing it down has helped clarify a little bit of it just to myself. Like,
Yes.
there were things that, I'm working off of gut level instinct that this just doesn't feel right. But then I start documenting the chronology of it, and it starts to come out like, oh yeah, this thing happened, or it's coming. So it's helping me really see the details of why I changed my mind, why I feel the way that I do.
Yeah, it seems like you're still working it out.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I'll be a finished product. I mean,
No one is, if they're honest about it.
well, the beautiful thing about oppressive law is if you take it away and everything goes to hell, you can always put it back.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Not that I think that that's the answer, but like,
Yeah, I mean, I've been thinking and writing about immigration for a long time. It's not my main focus, but I do a lot of it, and I still am thinking. As I told you, like, my argument for open borders is, not as tight as Brian Kaplan's is, and probably not as tight as yours is, and so that's in part why I wanted to talk to you, because I want to make the best argument possible. But
Right.
And it sounds like, and I love this about you, you're intellectually curious and you're open to ideas and how to think about what you actually did, which started with almost like a leap of faith in a way. It just felt wrong to you, right?
yeah,
And then you started to see or hear some ideas that might match the feeling,
right.
or justify the feeling in a post hoc way. Not to say that it was like, illegitimate or not genuine, but it's going to take a while to figure out exactly why you would leave such a good job. I think your friends who are wondering about why you would do that, they have reason to wonder. It's a great job, man. And you only had to apprehend a couple dozen people over 7 years. What's the big deal? It's just purely principle.
So one of the contradictions I found was, and it's a pretty standard libertarian maxim, like, why are we locking up nonviolent offenders? Mm-hmm. Why are nonviolent things illegal, at least to the extent that we'll lock people up? And I've always kind of agreed with that. And then one day it just hit me, like, walking across the boundary is not violence. So why am I locking them up? Mm-hmm. And I mean, so back to Brian Kaplan, like, he's done pretty in-depth studies, and one of the big fear, well, I'm in the trades, my father's in the trades, I know plenty of people in the trades. The big fear is that they're all going to come and drive wages down. And so
that's right. You compete with them.
Yeah.
Now that's right.
Is my philosophy now just voting myself a lower wage? Like, is that what's going to happen? And maybe.
Yeah.
It's possible.
Yeah.
But
like the job you have right now is a classic job for an immigrant, right? You sort of do maintenance at an apartment complex, right? Yeah, right. In California and Arizona, that's mostly Mexican guys.
Swinging hammers. Kaplan disagrees. He says, no, well, there's a lot of jobs that need filled. And when those jobs are filled, the economy starts to flourish. And when the economy starts to flourish, new positions open up, administrative and managerial positions.
Sure.
So that's a possibility too.
So on the macro level, Kaplan, I'm sure, is right about this. Okay. But he also acknowledges, I believe, if he's honest, I think he is, that in particular cases like yours, like someone who works in the trades on the border is likely to suffer from the competition of that open borders would bring. So there's no way that could be good for you in the trades in Arizona.
If I remember the study correctly, he found that the only class significantly hurt by open immigration policy is adults that had not finished high school.
Okay. Okay. Well, regardless. You took a tumble in terms of your class status by leaving the Border Patrol, correct?
Well, big time.
Okay. So here's what I'm going to suggest to you, Josh, that you're still a Christian. That this was essentially a Christian decision. Do you know what I mean?
No, go ahead.
Well, it's out of principle. You're doing it for other people. Now, I'm your hugest supporter, but I think that's the only way to explain it. Because it's against your own interest, what you did.
Well, it's against my financial interest, but it's not against my
beliefs,
peace of mind.
Yeah, sure.
You're
doing the right thing. You're doing the good thing.
For myself, though, I think. Okay. Not financially.
I'm not telling you you're doing something bad. I'm just trying to explain this.
No,
because you're doing something against your own self-interest financially.
Yeah.
You're doing it, you can say, it's for your own interest in terms of your own peace of mind, in terms of living according to your principles. But that's all it is, isn't it? It's just about your principles.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, most people don't do that, right? And the kinds of people who do that tend to be religious.
Right.
And I know you're not doing it for religious reasons per se, but I do think that you started out as a Christian, selflessness.
Some of that has to be still deep down. I mean, you can't just stop going to church and erase it all, right?
That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe the old Christian Josh is resurfacing in this particular way.
Right.
Which might be surprising to a lot of American Christians who voted for Trump and are for closing the borders and all the rest of it.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think if
your Jesus is a little bit different.
Well, yeah, I think if Christians read more Jesus and listened less to preachers, I don't want to bash Christians because I have friends that are completely happy in their faith, and just because I don't find the same thing, I don't want to bash it. But I have very specific reasons why I walked away.
Okay, so I am open borders out of self-interest. Because I think open immigration, free migration is good for me. Because I don't work in the trades in Arizona, and I never have, and I'm not going to be a gardener anytime soon because I suck at gardening, and I can't do that work, and I won't do that work, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not able to do that work in many cases, right? So there is no threat to me, and economically directly, but I enjoy all the stuff that all these immigrants bring to this country, not just the food, but all kinds of stuff that they do that I like. Mm-hmm. I like a lot of Mexican culture and Central American culture, and Asian culture that comes here, all kinds of stuff. So that's why I'm for it. It's totally self-interested. Mm-hmm. I don't hear that coming from you. This is about you feel like you're doing something wrong. And I agree with you. Morally, within our moral framework, our moral universe, it is wrong to stop people from moving their bodies. Mm-hmm. Is that right? So it's just moral and it's principled on your part. I mean, do you feel like, were you partly motivated by wanting to have all sorts of cuisines available in the United States? Is that why you are now for open borders? I didn't hear that coming from you.
No. Okay. I mean, I do appreciate that stuff too. But love Indian food.
Yeah, but that's not coming out of you. What's coming out is morality.
Yeah, probably.
Nothing wrong with it. I'm just trying to clarify here.
Yeah, no, well, I mean, the only self-interest, yeah, it's peace of mind for me. I mean, when I started writing, I knew that's what I wanted to do. Who knows how many careers I'll have in my life, but like once I started writing seriously, I knew that was what I wanted to do. But I was fine working in the Border Patrol until I got something off the ground. But then that changed. Then the stress of the struggle with it just became taxing. Yeah. And my writing suffered, and I just became difficult to be around. And so, yeah, it's self-interest in that respect. But yeah, I do. Yeah, I guess morally, yeah, I want other people that want a better life to get it too.
Yeah, well, the other reason I'm for open borders is I don't want anyone to restrict my movement.
Right.
So if I restrict someone's movement, it's hard for me to go to someone else's country and say, hey, let me walk around for a while here. Right. It just doesn't work. There's no argument that I can make for my own unfettered movement, right? So your skills in the military that you gained in the military and in the Border Patrol aren't really transferable to the private sector.
No, unless I want to be like a security officer for a bank or something, but I don't.
I was thinking you could be a hunting guide. Did you ever see that movie with Ice-T?
Yes, Surviving the Game.
There you go.
One of my favorites.
You could be that guy. You could be the guide for the hunters of people.
That was a good movie. Well, it wasn't a good movie, but I enjoyed the movie.
Otherwise, I don't see much out there for you.
No.
Is that true?
I mean, my limited Spanish skills will be useful if I stay in the trades.
I'm just saying, man, you took a leap. You took a leap. You were flying in a pretty comfortable jumbo jet, right?
Oh yeah.
You're a little bored, didn't really like it, but it was comfortable. And then seems to me one day you just jumped out the window. And you weren't even sure if the parachute would work.
Right.
And you're kind of falling right now. Still about 2 weeks into that fall. Right.
Yeah.
And you're hoping the parachute's going to catch.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I hope so.
Yeah.
It will.
I think so. But I'd be scared.
Oh, it's been terrifying. Well, so I'll walk you through the exodus.
Yeah. What happened?
So my kids had to start school. So when Backpage went away, so did my wife's job.
Oh my God, right.
And that was the plan, was she would work.
Oh, she lost her job too.
She lost her job.
Right, of course.
I was planning a March exodus, and I wanted to come to New Orleans and give you the great news that I jumped ship, and in April the FBI seized Backpage, and all of March it was nerves. I was like, I just couldn't bring myself to do it. Mm-hmm. And there was a gut level, like a gut feeling like this is too soon. And I'm glad, whether it was me being chicken shit or whether it was, some weird sixth sense intuition that made me stick around, I'm glad that I did, so that we continued to have income after my wife lost her job. Mm-hmm. But so she was looking for work and it just wasn't finding anything right away. And then the school year started, and she had to take we didn't want to start the boys' school in Yuma and then move them mid-year sometime to go to, move to Phoenix. So we got them set up, got them started in school, and every day after they left, I love having a family. I love being a dad, and I missed them. But every day I'd go to work and I'd be like, I loved the guys that I worked with too. They're great guys. They're fun. We bullshit. We laugh. People look out for each other. It's a tight knit thing. So my family left and I'm in Yuma by myself, and I'd show up to work. I'm like, all right, today's going to be the day. And then I'd get to work and I'd start talking to somebody and I'm like, I just couldn't pull the trigger. And then finally one day, I was like, fuck, I want to go see my kids. So I walked into the supervisor's office and I said, hey, how do I quit? He said, I don't know. Nobody quits.
Wow.
So the next supervisor coming on shift, I asked him the same thing. And he's like, well, just submit a letter. Like, what's going on? I was like, just not in it anymore. So he put me in contact with somebody the next day. The other supervisor said, when do you want to do it? I said, sooner the better. He said, well, go home and get some sleep. Whenever you wake up, come in and we'll get it done. So I did. He tried to talk me out of it. And then basically the next day I showed up and I had to meet with the patrol agent in charge of the station. And then, they wanted to know why. And I said, my views have changed. I'm just not in it anymore. It's not for me. Okay, is there anything we can do? Nope, my decision's made. So turned in all my gear, turned in my gun, turned in my badge, my creds, and signed the paper and left. And everybody was very cordial. They were confused, but they were like, okay, well, you got to do what's best for you.
So let me ask you about a word and a category. See how you respond to this. What do you think about this? What do you think about the word hero?
I fucking hate when people use it about me.
Mm-hmm. Have they?
Oh, yeah, because I went to war.
Oh, yeah. You were a war hero, just like John McCain. So, but for this, right? So if one believes that immigration policy and the way that it's enforced is bad, which is now a lot of Americans, right? And they think that the people in these agencies are doing bad things and the agencies are doing bad things, Border Patrol and ICE, right? Which is a lot of Americans now. And someone purely on principle and at great personal expense leaves one of those agencies in protest of what they were doing. It would seem to me that all these Americans now who are yelling about immigration and the horrors of it would and should consider you to be a hero. You don't have to respond, but I'm just going to say that. But logically, it makes sense, doesn't it?
I see what you're saying. I see where you're coming from. It's just one of those things that it's hard to take. I wouldn't ever consider myself in that way. It's always been hard. Like when people say, well, thank you for your service. It's like,
no. You're a hero for not doing your service.
Yeah, no, but even that, I mean, that's pretty common, but
Sure.
It's tough to hear. So, I mean, even when it's this, the way I've kind of thought about this is like, well, I was thinking like, I'm finally starting to have some of that bravery that Maggie McNeil has, like, but I think I probably called her a hero. So now I'm shooting my own argument in the foot.
You're stuck with it now. Well, Josh Childress, I want to thank you for not doing your service.
It's my pleasure.
And I also don't love the category of hero, but I don't know. I think you fit the bill as well as anybody I know.
Well, thank you. I'll defer and
That's it. Thank you. And I sure hope it works out. And I think it will work out. I think this is not the last time people hear about you.
Well, thank you. I hope it works out too. And yeah, I mean, I hope I can add value to a weird conversation that our country is having right now, because it's being had in an odd way. I mean, we're talking about people as if they're not people,
As if they're bodies.
We're people, but those bodies, those people coming in, they're not people. They're illegal. And mine's not an easy answer. If it goes the wrong way, there's a lot at stake for people, for the working class. But I think it's worth a try.
To let people come over.
Let's be free. Let's let people be free and see where it goes.
So you're out of the business of controlling bodies.
Right.
Good for you. Thanks. Thanks for quitting, and thanks for doing this.
Thanks for having me. I've always listened to the podcast and thought, boy, I would chime in. I'd have some things to say about that. Never freaking imagining that I would actually be here chiming in, but thank you for having me.
It's my honor.
This was the Unregistered podcast, and I'm Thaddeus Russell. To support the show and become a member of the Unregistered community, go to unregisteredunderground.com. To get information and to buy tickets to the Renegade University weekend events in Los Angeles and Washington, D.C., go to thaddeusrussell.com/courses. Thanks for listening.